Hi everyone. Last time we were at the Parker Inheritance, we were kind of getting a flashback into 1957, and we were learning a little bit more about Chip and the secret tennis game. So that's where I'll start back up again. Chip looked at himself in the rearview mirror, then patted down a tuft of hair on the top of his head. He had been to tennis practice at Perkins twice that week, mostly to give pointers to his dad about the players. He was also hoping Siobhan would stop by. He hadn't seen her all summer. He wanted to show her how much he'd grown, how much he'd changed during his first year away at college. He was so focused on getting to the school that he almost didn't see her walking down the street. But when she stopped to talk to a passing woman, she turned her head ever so slightly, just enough for him to catch a view of her beautiful brown face. Siobhan! Chip hastily pulled over. He was on Darling Avenue, the heart of Vista Heights. Barber shops, shoe stores, and other businesses lined the street. He could count the number of white people on 2 fingers. He'd been here before, meals at PJ's, a shoe shine at the stand, but only with his father. He didn't belong here, but he didn't care. He wanted to be anywhere she was. She was still talking to the woman as he neared her. He didn't know how to explain it. She looked the same, but different. Her hair was pulled into its usual ponytail, and her checkered dress looked like the same type of clothes she'd wear any other day. She carried a small bag. She turned and saw him. She seemed to falter for a second, then continued forward, toward him. He realized it was her stance and walk that were different. She stood taller, moved with confidence. She was no longer Lil Dub. "Hey, Siobhan," Chip said. "It's good to see you." He hoped she would hug him, but she kept her distance. "For a while I thought I wouldn't run into you at all this summer." She smiled and offered him a small nod. "Well, here I am." She repositioned the bag. Now that she was closer, he could see that she was carrying shoes. "What brings you out here?" she asked. All of Chip's bravado melted away. I was headed to school, but I stopped when I saw you." He nodded toward her bag. "Can I carry that for you?" "Oh, it's—" He was already taking the bag from her. As he grabbed it, he noticed the thin metal bracelet around her wrist. "Since when did you start wearing jewelry?" She quickly brought her arm up and covered her wrist. "Maybe the same time you started shaving every day?" He grinned. Did that mean she noticed that he'd shaved? Did she think that he'd cleaned himself up just for her? He had, of course. He just didn't want her to know that. "You taking these shoes to the store to get fixed?" "Just shine," she said. "I'll walk with you." The shoe shine stand seemed to be the only busy place during the lunch hour at PJ's, as people, mainly white people, would get their shoes shined while they waited for their food. Today, 2 older black men sat in the chairs above, though neither was getting a shine. 2 teenage boys sat on the platform beneath them. "I heard you were helping to get the boys ready for the game," she said. "How do they look?" "Good, real good. You should come and see them." "Daddy and I aren't really on speaking terms right now." Chip hoped she didn't see the surprise on his face. "And if you don't mind, I would appreciate you not telling him that you saw me," she said. "Sure, but why? Big Dub got you under lock and key?" "He would if he could." They stopped at the shoe shine stand. The older men stood, but Chip shook his head. "Y'all can stay there." He handed the bag to one of the boys sitting down. "We need these shined." "Thank you," Siobhan said. "But shouldn't you get out to the school? Haven't they started practicing already?" "Oh, they're just warming up. I've got plenty of time." He looked at the other boy, who was tall, lanky, and light-skinned. "Can you run into PJ's and grab us a couple of Cokes?" "Chip, really, I'm fine," she said. Chip fished some change from his pocket. He bypassed all the nickels and dimes before finally picking up a quarter and dropping it into the boy's hand. "Appreciate it." It was a whole 15 cents more than the Cokes cost. He hoped Siobhan would notice his generosity. The boy stared at the quarter as if he'd never seen one before. "Go ahead, boy," one of the men sitting in the chair said. "Get the young sir a drink." The boy curled his fist around the money, then headed into PJ's. "You decided about college yet?" Chip asked, after a moment. "Still leaning toward Howard or Hampton?" "I'm not leaning toward anything. I've still got a year left." She wrapped her arms around her body. "Chip, really, you should go. Why don't you ask me for one of those puzzles you could never solve?" "In a second. This is important." He wanted her to know he was too old for games. Some of the students from Georgetown had been meeting with the Howard kids. They're excited about what Dr. King did in Montgomery. Change is coming, but much too slowly. I want to do something to make things happen quicker." "Like what?" Chip hadn't figured that part out. He had been reading books and had gone to some lectures, but that didn't seem like enough. Maybe I'll go down and help protest. Well, that seems dangerous, Siobhan said. Before she could say anything more, the boy returned with their 2 uncapped Cokes. He offered the change to Chip, but he waved it off and took a long pull of his soda. Try it, he said to Siobhan. It's ice cold. Siobhan took a quick drink. Thank you. Then she let out a breath. Charles, you should head to the school. She looked around the street. After a second, he did the same. A few black people shot uneasy glances at them. A white man glared at his car as his car rolled by. I'll drop by the courts for practice, or at least for the game, she said. You can tell me more about the school then. He nodded. Sounds good. He left then. Hopefully he'd have another chance to prove his worth. Practice was in full swing by the time Chip reached Perkins High School. 4 boys played against one another on 2 courts. Big Dub and Jackie Harris, one of the school's best players, occupied the 3rd court. Jackie looked pretty fatigued, but Big Dub didn't seem tired at all. He waited for Jackie to take a sip of water and get back into position. Then Dub would fire another tennis ball across the net at him. Chip joined his father in the bleachers. What took you so long? His father asked. I had to make a quick stop. He nodded toward the court. How long have they been out here? Just a few minutes, Adam Douglas replied after checking his watch. Except for Jackie. Dub's had him out here for an hour already. His legs will be rubber by next week if they keep that up. From your mouth to Dub's ears, but ignore them for now. Watch the others. Chip studied the boys for the next 2 games, taking mental notes of what he saw. A year ago, he would have gone down there himself and tried to get pointers. But like he tried to tell Siobhan, he had learned a few things about race relations in his time away. Morkadai needs to open up when he's doing his backhand, Chip finally said. He watched for a few more volleys. Pratt looks good, but he's getting too nervous. He's trying to hit an ace with every serve. Those courts at Wallace are too new. He's not going to be able to control the ball like that. His father jotted it down. Me or Dub will talk to them about it. Chip glanced at Jackie, the boy on the court, a towel draped over his head. While Big Dub squatted beside him, Chip couldn't tell what Dub was saying, but whatever it was, it didn't seem pleasant. Will they be ready? Chip asked. Hard to tell. They're good, but so are Tommy's boys, and we're playing on their home court. He took off his glasses. That might be for the best. These boys don't need to win that game. But it would mean so much to them, Chip said. In the short term, yeah, it would be great for our boys. Give them some confidence. But in the long run, confidence is a very dangerous thing for a Negro boy to have around here. Chip scratched the 3 blotches on his leg. I've been thinking more about what we talked about the other day. Maybe joining the NAACP or going south to help next summer. You keep thinking about that while you work at the pool next year. But I didn't save all that money just to have you. His father shook his head. You're not about to throw away your life just to impress a girl. This doesn't have anything to do with Siobhan, Chip said. His father glared at him. This has everything to do with her. You've been hot for her since you were 13. Chip didn't bother trying to tell his father otherwise. It doesn't matter how I feel about her. It's still the right thing to do. Leave Siobhan alone, his father said. Leave all these black girls alone. Focus on your books. Get your degree. There's nothing wrong with dating a Negro girl. No. Chip stood up. His father was just as bad as the boys from the pool. They don't have diseases. My skin's not going to suddenly turn dark if... Boys, sit down. Chip must not have moved fast enough, because a second later, his father grabbed his arm and forced him back to sitting. I don't know if it's the heat that's gotten to you, or what. You must have forgotten who you're talking to. Chip rubbed his arms. They aren't monsters. Don't you think I know that? I wouldn't teach here if I believed otherwise. He looked out at the court. Big Dub was showing Jackie how he wanted him to attack the net. Enough of this. Focus on the game. If you want to help somebody, help them. You know, you were just a little older than me when you got married. Oh, what? So now you've gone from dating to marriage? His father asked, throwing his hands up. Well, it's just... First, we're both white. Second, I was in the army, not some dumb college freshman. And third, your mama didn't have a daddy like Big Dub. He would kill you if he knew you were trying to court his daughter. He wouldn't have to know, not if she went to Howard. Forget about Dub for a second. You think those good old boys are going to let you two date? It ain't even legal for a white person to marry a colored person in Virginia, much less anywhere else in the South. Well, we could move up north. There are racists there too. How are you going to protect her? What are you going to do when people spit at you, throw bottles at you, attack you? Shoot, you don't even know how she feels about you. For all you know, she could be in love with another fella. I should at least try though, right? You always said go after what I wanted. I was talking about sports, education. His father rubbed his eyes. Tell me this, how many times have you gone to a Negro church? Once? Twice? Better yet, how does it make you feel? Do you sway with the music? Do you want to jump and clap your hands? Or do you just sit there, hoping that no one's staring at you? Chip looked at his lap. That was answer enough. I don't care how many courses you take or how many books you read. You'll never understand what it means to be a Negro. You'll never face the discrimination they see every day. You'll never struggle the way they do. Now enough talking. Here comes Dub. Chip shielded his eyes as Big Dub walked over to them, his racket perched on his shoulder. Siobhan had definitely inherited her height from him. Hey, Dub, Chip said, stretching his hand out. You're really working them today, huh? Big Dub shook his hand. Got some pointers for the team? Yep, I already gave them to Dad. Well, we can go over them tomorrow, Adam Douglas said as he stood. So what do you think, Dub? Big Dub frowned at the court. If we had 2 more weeks. Well, we don't. Big Dub switched his racket to the other shoulder. They're good, but not good enough. Chip's father glanced at his son for a second and sighed, then turned back to Dub. What do you think about bringing in your star player? No. I thought you wanted to win, Adam Douglas shrugged. But I get it. Winning isn't everything. Chip looked at both men. Who are you all talking about? Your dad wants me to let Reggie Bradley back on the team, Big Dub said. Reggie? Chip vaguely remembered hearing about the boy, but he couldn't place his face. I didn't think he was that good. Oh, he got a lot better last year, Adam said. He hesitated, then said, Turns out he was getting a lot of extra practice. Big Dub narrowed his eyes. We don't need Reggie. You want to punish the boy, or do you want to win? Adam Douglas placed his hand on Dub's shoulder. Let me go talk to him. And I am going to stop right there. And I don't really have any questions for you this time, other than I just want you to keep thinking about who James Parker might really be and how he is somehow connected to the Washingtons, the Allens, and Siobhan in the secret tennis game while we're reading.